Hi, this is Zach from Concept 3D. I'm going to go over a landscape model in SketchUp. What we're going to do here is we're going to make it smooth with the sandbox tools. We're going to make some contours, put them on layers, make some scene tabs, and save some JPEGs and some tips and tricks while I work on everything. Now what's already been done is tracing has been already tracing the contour lines and pushing them up with a push-pull and pushing them down here and there. The sandbox tool, it works really great on simpler models, but right here it's going to be a little bit trickier to do here. The sandbox tools, if you don't have it on your screen, it's under the preferences, window preferences. Make sure that extensions sandbox is checked. So this is the way it works. If I mean, in a perfect world, I could just select everything and it would work, but if I double click these surfaces and I click sandbox tool, it makes triangulates all the lines for me, so that's great. View hidden geometry is what you're seeing right here. I have a shortcut for it. I'd recommend putting everything at shortcuts. Under window preferences, go to shortcuts, there's type in hidden, view hidden geometry, just letter E, and then make sure to hit the plus sign. Okay. So this makes it to a group. There's my mesh right there, and that's a group. And we run into problems using this sandbox tool when you have depressions like this, and I'll show you why. I'm using the selection tool and I'm double clicking and I'm holding down the shift key, and now when I do the sandbox tool, you can see it doesn't do the depression. So we're gonna have to treat those depressions a little bit special. Also, it didn't really work over here either. So if we do that, use the sandbox tool, still didn't work. So sometimes it's going to work and sometimes it's not going to work, but we're going to make it sure it works everywhere. So the sandbox tool, it works off of looking at lines here. I'm just going to select some lines and just show you how it thinks. There's a couple lines. I'm holding down the control key. So there's some lines right there. If I just click the sandbox tool, it automatically makes faces and connects all the endpoints of those lines. So now what we need to do is, what would be great to have is, instead of extruded geometry, we had just all 3D lines. So just a bunch of contour lines. But what we have here, if I just copy this up and show you, and I make some lines here. I'm going to erase this line right here and erase that line. You can see that there's lines on top of lines, and the sandbox tool is not going to work. We just want this top line right here. If I just I'm triple clicking with the selection tool and I'm holding on the shift key, so I just want that line right there, and then when I use the sandbox tool, you can see it works good, and there's some lines inside that I do not want, and so I just have to go through this entire site. It looks pretty big, but we can do it pretty quickly. And make sure to select only what I want. A couple shortcuts for selecting only what you want is a trick that I use is painting the surfaces. Once you have the surfaces painted, you can right click and go to select all the same material, and then I can just get all those surfaces really quickly, and then I can take it to step 2. So let's just do step 1 of painting everything. I just did an undo there. A quick way, and so you can see I'm going through here and I've got to click, 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 but I would prefer to look at the top view, the zoom extents, and then make sure that the perspective, camera perspective, is turned off. It was actually off. Let's see here. There, I have a shortcut for perspective too. Let's go back to top view, and then I'm just going to paint everything in top view. I want to paint all the white areas. And turning off the perspective, it lets you look exactly straight down, and it's just a quicker way to paint. So I'm going to do the entire video in real time, so you can see I'm not taking any super shortcuts, and also you can see how long it took to do the model in real time. And I get to these points where it's doing the same task over and over and over again, and I Wish I had a nice joke to tell you right now, but I've been thinking too hard. Alright, there's a bunch of little ponds around here or something. Alright, I think I am done. Okay, zoom extents. Oh, there's a couple stragglers. And apologize in advance if I'm jumping around too much with my orbit. I have a tendency to orbit really fast and pan really fast. And while I'm talking about that is the scroll wheel is the orbit tool if you haven't figured that out already. And if you hold on the shift key, that's the pan tool. Now if you've already figured out that holding on the shift key and the orbit tool is pan, you probably didn't know if you double click with the scroll wheel, double click, what that does is it centers your screen on what you double click on. So I double click on the center, just on something little that's there. So that was step 1. Let's do step 2. I actually don't know how many steps there are. I'm just kind of making this up as I go, but I know where I'm going. So I'll just right click on this red surface and go to select all, same material. It selects all the red. I'm going to go to the move tool and I'm going to tap the control key. It's the option key on the Mac, but control key on PC, and just click it one time. Now I've got my copy, so I'm just waiting a second for it to register. You can tap the up arrow key and that will lock it to the blue axes. I'm going to copy it up at a known distance, so I'm going to copy it at 500 feet. That way if I wanted to move it down, then I can move it down exactly 500 feet. There we go. I do not need this down here right now, so I'm going to hide it. And let's say that you don't like that red. Well, you can take the paint bucket and sample this and start painting it one by one. But the shortcut with a paint bucket is if I hold down the shift key and I click on red, it's going to paint everything in your model that was red. Now that's not good. So I want to hold down the control key, and if I click on the red, it's going to paint only this geometry down here. Well, actually, the control key doesn't work, but the control and the shift key should work down here. So the paint bucket has different options too, the shift control. I'm going to hide this with my layers, window layers, original contours, and I usually like to put something on a group and then put it on a layer. So it's just right click after you've selected something, right click, make group. And it's a big file. So, and then I'm going to, you can do the drop down menu, view toolbars, make sure layers is there. So view toolbars, layers. You can drop it down to contours, or you can just right click on it and go to entity info, and then you can drop it down to original contours. And now I can turn it off. So that was step 2. I'm going to make another video for step 3.